Good morning. I'm Steph Ward, she, her, and I serve on the board of directors. Welcome to White Bear Unitarian Universalist Church. We are a community of youth, adults, and children of many diverse theologies held together by covenant, not by creed. We find value in being together amidst our differences and learning from each other. Together, we share the values of courage, reverence, and compassion. Welcome to any visitors. We're so glad you're here. May you find deep welcome and belonging in this space. To share a request for today's meditation, please place it in the chat box online or add it to the meditation bowl before the opening hymn. Please gain consent before you use someone's full name. And now a brief word from our music director, Alex Rack.
I'm very excited to announce a new addition to the staff here at White Bear Unitarian Universalist Church. So Kathleen Bartholomew is going to be our staff collaborative pianist. So you'll see her accompanying the choir and playing hymns on Sunday mornings going forward. And we're going to have a special event on the 27th to thank Laura, who's been sharing her talents with us over the past year. So if you would like to give a special thank you for Laura at that time, the 27th is the day to do that, so, or if you run into her. So, thank you.
Thank you, Laura, for all of your dedication. We love hearing you play. For those in the room, please join us at our social hour after the service across the hallway in the social hall. Welcome to this church. Together we grow our souls and serve the world in love.
I'm Reverend Jack Gady, Associate Minister here, and my pronouns are he, him. Come into this place which we make holy by our presence. Come in with all your vulnerabilities and strengths, fears and anxieties, loves and hopes. For here you need not hide, nor pretend, nor be anything other than who you are and who you are called to be. Come into this place where we can touch and be touched, heal and be healed, forgive and be forgiven. Come into this place where the ordinary is sanctified, the human is celebrated, the compassionate is expected. Come into this place. Together we make it a holy place. Tim Nelson will light our chalice this morning.
I'm Tim Nelson, he, him pronouns. When I noticed the monthly theme of deep listening, my mind went immediately to a little book called The Sacred Art of Listening, 40 Reflections for Cultivating a Spiritual Practice by Kay Lindahl. Listening as a spiritual practice. I like that. Among the reflections, she includes listening to communicate, listening from your heart, listening for soul, and listening with love. I was especially struck by one called Listening for Context, where she made a distinction between discussion and dialogue. While often used interchangeably, there are some ways that these two forms of communication are set apart from one another. Discussion has its roots in Latin words which mean apart and to shake. From it comes words like concussion and percussion. It's a form of communication that might seem like a debate, each person wishing to present their ideas to make a point, perhaps forming the next response while the other is speaking. What often happens, not always, but often, is that someone ends up feeling like they've won and the other having lost. Dialogue, on the other hand, has its roots in the Greek dia and logos, literally meaning words flowing through. Dialogue can be a place of mutuality and respect of the views of the other. Agreeing isn't necessary, but careful, deep listening is. When people enter into dialogue, they often come away with an appreciation of the other and hopefully a deeper understanding of themselves. They might even co-create something together. Think about it. In a written work, a novel or a play, dialogue fleshes out the characters and propels the story along, thus increasing understanding. Perhaps a fruit of dialogue is coming away honestly feeling that you were heard and that others heard what you said. We live in a time and a context where there's a lot of discussion going on. And please don't misunderstand me. There's certainly a need for discussion. There's a place for speaking truth to power. There are times when life requires us to speak authoritatively, passionately, assertively, convincingly, prophetically. However, from my perspective, it seems that we could benefit from a bit more dialogue in our communities, our neighborhoods, and our families. What would it mean to be in dialogue, to have as a point of departure, listening through? Perhaps we would understand one another more deeply. Even when there's disagreement, it seems that something good can come from the practice of deep listening. I light the chalice today with the invitation to enter into dialogue, deeply listening to the words flowing through, and an openness to being transformed.
Please join me in the opening words. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Please rise and body your spirit for our opening hymn, number 170, We Are a Gentle, Angry People. It's in our gray hardcover hymnal, and we're singing verses 1, 2, 6, and then 1 again.
We are a gentle, angry people, and we are
are singing, singing for our lives. We are justice-seeking people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are the gentle, loving people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are the gentle, loving people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are the gentle, angry people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are the gentle, angry people, and we are singing, singing for our lives.
Hi, I'm Mark Caswell, and I'm the youth coordinator for 2024-2025. And I'd like to invite any youth who'd like to come up for the story and hear it a little bit closer. So today's story comes from the Sioux people. This story was given to the native people many winters ago, when it was time for all the young mothers in the village to go out to gather fruits and berries. The old grandmothers, whose legs could no longer walk quickly, were left to care for the young children in the village. The young mothers honored the grandmothers by giving them this great responsibility. It's believed that young children have many dreams and visions to collect before they're grown. One of these days, while the young children slept, Crow and Magpie, two noisy winged ones, were having a terrible argument outside the lodge of the sleeping children. And for this part of the story, and a few other times, I'm going to need a lot of help from folks. So I'm going to ask if this side of the sanctuary could be our crows. So we're going to say, caw-caw. Wonderful. And then if this side could be our magpies and say, cack-cack, cack-cack. Now let's all see if we can practice together. Caw-caw. Wonderful. Let's get back to the magpie and the crow in the trees. So while Crow and Magpie were both speaking at once, they couldn't hear each other's point of view on the subject of which tree belonged to each of them. So Crow screamed, and Magpie yelled, and they both screamed and yelled. Oh my gosh, that was so wondrously loud. How could they hear each other? And meanwhile, one of the grandmothers went to quiet the voices outside so they would not wake the children. She tried to scare the birds away. And when she could not get the attention of the screaming crow or the yelling magpie, she called on Eagle for help. Eagle, the great winged one, was a sacred bird for both the native people and all the other animals of the earth. He was also full of so much wisdom, and everyone looked to him to help them with their problems. "Oh, Brother Eagle, can you chase off these noisy ones so our children can dream?" asked the grandmother. With a mighty flap of his wings, Eagle sailed towards the noisy pair. He gave a call of warning to Crow and Magpie as he came close, but they were so busy fighting that they did not even hear him. When Eagle saw this, he yelled louder and came closer, and that is when it happened. Crow flapped his wings in the air so hard, caw-caw, caw-caw. He didn't even notice Eagle coming, and Magpie flapped up a storm and yelled, "Caca, caca." And then they both yelled. And suddenly they both realized that they had flapped their wings so hard without looking at what they were doing that they hit one of Eagle's feathers. What is worse, one of the sacred feathers from Eagle fell out and landed on a small branch suspended above Mother Earth. It was a great offense to touch Eagle, much less cause one of his feathers to come off. Magpie spoke to Eagle. "Oh, Brother Eagle, we did not hear you so near. I'm truly sorry for the injury that I have caused you." Now, Crow was surprised to hear such an honorable thing come from the mouth of his rude neighbor. He spoke to Eagle with dignity. "I have many times been a naughty bird, but Brother Eagle, I think this may be the worst I have done in many moons. I'm very sorry you have lost your sacred feather." Crow and Magpie both went to retrieve Eagle's feather, and their eyes met. And with no words at all, they both knew that this mistake would not have happened if they had not been fighting. Magpie took the feather in his beak and spoke. "I'm ashamed, Brother Eagle, that my loud talk and harsh words were more important to me than solving our problem." Crow took the feather from Magpie and said, "We have disturbed the two-legged children and torn from your wing a sacred feather, and now we return it to you with a request for your forgiveness." Eagle watched all this with wise eyes and an open heart. He knew the lesson of listening had been learned by his little brothers, and he saw that the grandmother looked on with learning eyes as well. Thank you all so much for your help. Through this story, we learn the importance of learning to listen more deeply, and that when we get excited about being right, we might forget to listen. And even if we get excited and forget to listen, once we remember to listen, we can pause and get another chance to listen. Thank you all so much. Now we're going to move into the meditation section. As we move into a time of deepening spirit, take a breath or two to settle into the present moment. You may close your eyes or soften your gaze. As you breathe, notice your body grounded on your seat or your feet upon the floor supported by the earth beneath us all. Take a breath to let go some of the tension you carried into the sanctuary today. Take a breath to notice the change that is happening within your body and around you. Take a breath to accept the change you're noticing. Spirit of life, we welcome you to join us as a source of inspiration with all those gathered here today. We are a community of 90 people in this room and 34 households on Zoom. Our individual identities mix together during this time. Our collective humanity creates this congregation when our community membership overrides our individualistic selves. In this mixing of our energy and bodies, made up of vibratory cells, we create beloved community. We hold the tension of belonging and bringing our authentic selves. We need each other to share in this dance of relationship. And yet this invitation to dwell together can lead to disagreements about how we do that together. Today we pray for the patience to listen to opposing viewpoints as we encounter them. We pray for a holy pause and the restraint of tongue and pen when we feel misunderstood or a disagreement arises. We pray that when we encounter conflict, we may invite love into our hearts as we respond. A love comprised of everyone who has ever loved you, your family and friends, your ancestors, and this congregation. Each of us carries our own joys and sorrows in our hearts, and we lift them up this morning. We hold in light and love Sue Dahlman, who is having knee surgery on Thursday, my mother and family for guidance and grace during this difficult journey. Please send healing energy to longtime member Naomi Baer, who is at Regents Hospital undergoing intensive chemotherapy for leukemia. And prayers of healing for Isabel Litzopad, who shares that her spinal surgery looks successful and recovery is going well. And remembering Siglinda Gaspin on the 2nd anniversary of her metamorphosis. And now take a moment to speak the names of the people that you're holding in your heart and mind. Knowing that together we can hold this better than we can alone. May it be so, and amen. Please remain seated as we sing hymn 1009, Meditation on Breathing, in our teal soft-covered hymnal.
We've now sung this hymn a couple times over the past weeks. We're going to do it a little bit differently this time. We're going to start with the drone together, then layer in the main melody, and then the descant. You're encouraged to sing any part that's most comfortable to you. Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, when I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out.
Before we take this morning's offering, we have a few brief announcements. If you're new or new-ish to our church and want to learn more about membership and belonging, please join Reverend Jack today at 12:30 in the Wheatley Room for Membership 1. Snacks will be provided. Please visit the Breeze table in the social hall on the right-hand side after the service, where you can learn more about our church's database and how to use the online directory. If you don't have a photo in the directory yet, will you please have your photo taken today by Ken over there along the windows. You can do that after the service. We have a goal of adding 50 more photos of members to the database. Please visit the Breeze table to learn more. Next Sunday, October 27th, is our Day of Remembrance, where we will be lighting candles during the service to honor our beloveds and ancestors that have passed on before us. Please feel free to bring a photo of your loved one and place it on the table before the service. Our Music on Maple concert series kicks off this Saturday in the evening with our Halloween-themed pizza and dance party, hosted by the Bazillions. Pizza party begins at 5, and then music and dancing at 6. Then the following Saturday, 2 Saturdays later, on November 9th, we are hosting a concert of Grammy Award-winning artist Nachito Herrera. That's at 7:30 p.m. Get your tickets now for yourself and your friends. Today, the Social Action Committee has chosen our special offering recipient to be the Minnesota UU Social Justice Alliance. It's a mouthful, so it's also known as Moose Jaw. Our statewide UU Justice organization focuses on defending democracy, climate, immigration, and racial, reproductive, and gender justice. Many of you enthusiastically participated in Moose Jaw's postcard campaign, encouraging young renters to vote in the upcoming election. We mailed several thousand postcards from our church alone. In total, about 70,000 postcards were mailed out from 14 UU congregations. This effort could make a difference in electing more progressive representation in the Minnesota legislature and in our congressional delegations. Today's special collection will help Moose Jaw cover the mailing costs, around $35,000, and support its other important work across the state of Minnesota. You can contribute today as we pass baskets. You can also give on the website, send a check, or use the text to give option, which is printed in the order of service. You can also note that it's also posted in the Zoom chat for those of you online. No matter how you give, please indicate the acronym Moose Jaw, MUUSJA. Thank you for supporting the critical social justice work of Moose Jaw with your time, talents, and money.
The first reading this morning is called Ways to Listen, an Incomplete List by Rosemary Watola Traumer. There's lonely listening when sitting in a crowd, open listening as one listens, eyes closed to the wind in the cottonwood leaves, numb listening as one listens to detergent commercials, baffled listening as one tries to discern if the speaker could possibly believe what they say, and full body listening as the cello plays. Sometimes I've felt my whole being break with delight in joyful listening to my daughter's laughter, and break equally with the unbearable listening as the soil falls on the casket. There's the holy listening when we listen for the dead, and greedy listening in which every other utterance is merely a ladder rung for stepping into your own story. Selfless listening only knows to receive. There's the way you sometimes listen to me, as if my words are waves on the river, not something to interpret, but something familiar. And the way you sometimes listen to my silence and know precisely what I mean. There's nervous listening as one listens to the mouse in the wall, and vast listening, like when on a clear night lit only by stars, I can almost sense how the universe not only sings through my body, but listens to itself, and knows itself in the listening. The second reading is an excerpt from How to Know a Person by David Brooks. Being an illuminator, seeing other people in all their fullness, doesn't just happen. It's a craft, a set of skills, a way of life. Other cultures have words for this way of being. The Koreans call it nunchi, the ability to be sensitive to other people's moods and thoughts. The Germans, of course, have a word for it, Herzensbildung, training one's heart to see the full humanity in another. Being an illuminator is a way of being with other people, a style of presence, an ethical ideal. My sermon today is titled, How Do I Respect Someone I Disagree With? Well, I assume that some of you have come here for answers. And I'm actually one of them too, because here's the thing. I'm actually asking, how do we do this? How do we respect someone we disagree with? This sermon topic is a product of our annual church auction, where we allow congregants to place bids on the ability to choose a sermon topic for a future sermon. April Elfith was the top bidder, and we had a most fruitful conversation where her most pressing question, especially in the lead up to this election cycle, was, how do I respect someone I disagree with? She shared with me briefly how hard it is to respect others with such wildly different political views than hers, and that respect gets even harder when she's angry. Anybody relate? Yeah, relatable. But that lack of respect flies in the face of our UU values, right? So what do we do? Honestly, at first I thought this sermon topic would be too simplistic. I mean, every week we talk about being a place where people who have different beliefs and values come together, we live together in peace, we seek the truth in love, right? We should be experts at this. But if that's the case, why can't I talk to certain beloved members of my own biological family right now for these next 16 days, right? Can we deeply love someone that we also deeply disrespect? Seems like quite the conundrum. Well, with your permission, I'm going to tell you up top that I'm not going to be providing exact answers to this question. But I wonder what will happen if we wonder about the topic together for a time. And I'm glad that our children and youth are with us this morning for two specific reasons. First of all, you youth and children out there are some of our best teachers about how to meet people without too many preconceived notions. As we age, we encounter more and more people. We begin to notice patterns in those people and in how they act. And slowly we start to make assumptions about who people are instead of truly encountering them. Before we listen to more of their story or hear more about their life, we might already be making assumptions about them. We know not to do this, and we've been cautioned against it, but it sometimes feels a little hardwired into us, doesn't it? And in some ways, it probably is. There's a very helpful survival tactic buried there within that tendency to notice patterns. But there's also a lot of possibility for false assumptions and hurtful conclusions. And these assumptions might stem from one-time behaviors or past behaviors, or even just the way someone looks, or the clothes they wear, or the car they drive, or the fact that they don't own a car. Our children and youth are less practiced in this skill, and that is a great thing. They have a better chance to encounter a new person and actually meet them where they are, without so many prejudgments and past hurts getting in the way. And second of all, there are times where our children and youth, we might have a really hard time respecting somebody else or somebody else's belief. Then we remember that our children and youth are watching us, so we find a way to get to that level of respect needed. We might be about to disrespect someone's driving abilities or grocery choices or their love for a certain sports team, like the New York Liberty, for example. And we remember that despite our differences, or even across our differences, we can still find dignity and value and inherent worthiness in even the most rabid New York Liberty fan. No, I'm kidding. Those fans are the worst. Go Lynx. Now, as funny as that sports example might seem, it's an apt one, right? Our children and youth watch us. They watch who we choose to disrespect, whether it is at a sporting event, or by cutting someone off in a line, or being rude to a customer service person, even though those encounters can be infuriating, right? How do we treat people? Our children and youth are also watching how adults everywhere are talking to each other on social media. And I don't have to tell you, social media is not the best place to learn how to engage in civil public discourse. No matter how angry we are about what's happening in the moment, how can we still choose love and respect instead of disrespect and indifference? The reason I'm so glad that children and youth are here with us today in this service is that we ought to be learning side by side. across all ages and generations how to respect each other, online and in person. And our children and youth are some of our best teachers and some of our best accountability partners. I'm grateful to Tim this morning for sharing a chalice lighting with such a heartfelt call away from discussions that sometimes feel more like concussions that can bruise your head or your spirit, and toward dialogue, dia logos, right? Through words flowing through. The art of noticing one another deeply and noticing the words that flow through. I just started reading the newest book by David Brooks called How to Know a Person, The Art of Seeing Others Deeply and Being Deeply Seen. In an early chapter, though, Brooks admits that his subtitle is actually not quite accurate. Instead, it should read, The Art of Hearing Others Deeply and Being Deeply Heard. Because, he states, getting to know someone else is usually more about talking and listening than about seeing. I've got to be honest with y'all. I was about a third of the way through the book and really digging it, and then I talked to a colleague who shared that she was mildly interested in reading the book, but couldn't really get over her political differences with Brooks. I was genuinely confused because I just knew he wrote for the New York Times and made certain assumptions about his politics. I looked it up, and Wikipedia told me he was described as a moderate, a centrist, a conservative, and a moderate conservative. And I was shocked. Should I stop reading his book now that I know we have different political leanings? But fortunately, I had already started reading it, and I was really liking it and learning from it. And that process felt like another little lesson. Instead of running away or closing the book, I leaned in toward the differences that we may or may not have. I wanted to do my best to encounter his words and his ideas, and maybe in the process, I would get better at the practice and art of seeing and hearing others deeply. I'd love to share a few lessons that I've already gleaned from the book. First, Brooks encourages us to be illuminators instead of diminishers. An illuminator does their best to shine a full light on someone in all of their complexity and see them with an active curiosity, tenderness, generosity, and affection. On the other hand, diminishers, Brooks says, make people feel small and unseen. They see each other as things to be used, not as persons to be befriended. They stereotype and ignore. He lists a few elements of the diminishers that should be avoided. Egotism, anxiety, the naive realism that doesn't take account of other people's perspectives, and then this little thing he calls the lesser minds problem. Because we don't have access to all the thoughts that are running through other people's minds, but only the tiny portion that they speak out loud or publish in writing, we begin to conclude that we are much more complicated than everyone else around us. We think of ourselves as deeper, more interesting, more subtle, and more high-minded than those around us. Does anybody else feel convicted by this? I think he might have been talking about me. I mean, I pride myself in being a person that has shaken off a lot of the judgments and prejudices that I used to feel or have for people when I first met them. I've grown a lot in the way that I encounter people and try really hard to meet them where they are and listen to their stories. But I definitely still find myself painting my political opponents as one-dimensional, or as one-issue voters, or as uninformed, or hypocritical, or inconsistent, or any other number of aspersions. And in these moments, I, of course, feel superior. I feel like I'm one of the only people who is three-dimensional and complicated and consistent and informed. Those other people are being duped. Don't they know that the politicians they're supporting are making their lives worse, etc.? Maybe you've heard things like this before. I just want to take a moment here to pause and remind us that those same thoughts are what some people are saying about us, about you, about me. Right? Whether we are crows or magpies, yeah, we all think the tree belongs to us, right? I don't have a cure-all solution for this problem, so I'm sorry. But I have a few questions for you. that might help you as you explore how to navigate the next 16 days, and the next few years, and the next few election cycles. First, when you're feeling like it's impossible for you to locate the inherent worth, dignity of another person, whether it's someone at your local cafe, or on your block, or in the news, that is a great moment to pause and reconnect to your values. If it's possible, do something nice for them. Maybe it's your neighbor who has a sign in their lawn that makes you aware that you have differences, right? Offer to mow their lawn or shovel their sidewalk. Dedicate a loving kindness meditation to them. Or maybe just give them a hearty greeting next time you see them. And then see what happens in you. When you find yourself caught up in a really contentious discussion or fight or disagreement or argument, pause. Take a breath. Take a moment and think about who is benefiting from your fight. I've seen many, many families split apart when the various family members start parroting the talking points of various cable news channels. Maybe you've seen this too. And when you really break that down, I've wondered this a lot. That's a fight that's happening between the two news channels, right? But the echoes of it are happening in millions of families across our country. And it's not even necessarily our fight. We're play acting someone else's fight. I can't tell you how many times I've gotten into arguments with my own family members about topics that neither of us know intimately, maybe, right? But we've heard, and we're mad. And I'm not saying we can't have conversations and discussion and dialogue, hopefully, about topics that are important to us. But sometimes a little pause and a little breath might just remind us that the cable news channels might be primarily the ones benefiting from our fights, right? We might get our sense of belonging from our political affiliations, religious affiliations, other various places, but then do our family relationships suffer because of it? If your only connection to a person is in a disagreement you're having, that connection might not remain strong. But what would happen if you connected with that person in other ways? Or connected about other things? How can you find common ground, right? Or find a few common values? So this morning, let's actually do an embodiment practice together. Place your hands on your heart. Settle in. I invite you all to think of a person with whom you disagree. Maybe it's a small disagreement, and maybe it's a big one. What are you up for this morning? Imagine this person has a full and complicated life like you do. Imagine their family members, their loving relationships, who they love and who loves them. Imagine that just like you, the stories that they have lived, the experiences that they have had, have shaped them. Your views might be different, but your humanity is the same. You are shaped by your stories like they are shaped by theirs. What other ways are you similar to them? What other connections do you share? And let's take one big breath of loving kindness for ourselves. And then one big breath of loving kindness for them. How did that feel? Once you've made those other connections, did you find it easier to find your sense of respect for them and their inner sense of dignity and worthiness? I'm not saying this is easy, y'all. If it were easy, David Brooks would never have had to write a book about it. But here at White Bear, let's start by practicing civil disagreement. Last spring, our youth asked us to vote up or down on various hot topics. I know some of you were here for that service. And we were encouraged to look around the room to find out who were the cat people and who were the dog people, right? Or to vote on whether or not a taco is a sandwich. There were strong opinions about that one. Now, obviously, some of these seem maybe small or somehow petty, but I hope many of us were able to look around the room and respect the people whose values we so deeply share, right? Even if they like cats more than dogs. And though this seems small, it might lead to a greater ability to respect some of the bigger disagreements that we also hold with each other, right? Let's lean into this time, knowing that finding and expressing respect for everyone will be very hard. And we can do hard things. There are many people and maybe even industries dependent on our lack of ability to respect each other. But let's not feel beholden to them and to lining their pockets. Let's listen to Brother Eagle and his wisdom. Let's spend more time listening to each other and to that voice still and small within us, pointing us toward greater respect. Let's continue to form relationships and connections with many of the people we encounter throughout our day, knowing we have differences with them. We share the roads and the cafes and the bike lanes and our gyms and shops and doctors' offices with people that think and feel and are very different from us. And there's a strong potential to become better off because of that interplay between us. Let's recommit ourselves to civic engagement and dialogue. Let's find common ground, and let's also stand up for our values. We won't get it right the first time, probably not the 90th time, but let's try anyway, right? And let's be perfectly imperfect together. May it be so, and amen. Please rise in body or spirit for our closing hymn, number 391 in the gray hardcover hymnal, Voice Still and Small.
Still and small, deep inside all, I hear your call singing. In storm and rain, sorrow and pain, still will remain singing. Calming my tears, quenching my tears, through all the years singing. Voice still and small, deep inside all, I hear you call singing. In storm and rain, sorrow and pain, still will remain singing. Calming my fears, quenching my tears, through all the years singing.
This week, as you listen to your still small voice and find new ways to respect yourself and those around you, I hope that we can see each other and hear each other more deeply, right? As we also are more deeply seen and heard ourselves. Will you turn to a neighbor and tell them that you're glad that you're here and that they're different from you?